Welcome back. All right, so the NHL revealed today the odds and the timing and all of that of the draft lottery, so why not take a look? Of course, we will have a live stream on the channel when the draft lottery takes place. That timing is going to be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 3:30 p.m. Pacific, which means they'll probably have about a half an hour before the actual lottery, or they'll take their time. If I've seen anything with the NHL for the last few years, they know how to draw things out. But what I did was I went to Tankathon, which tells you where everybody currently is in the draft lottery likelihoods, and I put in the percentages that the NHL revealed today. So I'm wearing Arizona because currently they would have the number one draft pick. Their odds of ending up with that number one draft pick, 18.5%. Now, this year, unlike other years, only the top 11 are eligible to draft first overall. The most you can move up is 10 spots. So that number one pick lottery is only going to be among the top 11 teams. But it's interesting because it could come down as low as Anaheim. And of course, if you add the number one pick to Anaheim, you're loading that team up. Montreal, their odds 13.5%, Philadelphia 11.5%, Seattle 9.5%. And then there's the Columbus pick. Now, what's interesting is if that ends up winning a top spot, a top two spot, the pick reverts to the Chicago Blackhawks. So it has an 8.5% chance of that being the case. This is the pick that Columbus gets in the Seth Jones trade. And if the draft pick ends up being Chicago's because it's a top two, the 2023 pick, which is not protected, ends up going to Columbus instead. New Jersey has a 7.5% chance of winning it. Ottawa 6.5%, Buffalo 6%, Detroit 5%, San Jose 3.5%, and Anaheim 3%. So again, it's a low chance, but you could have Anaheim and San Jose drafting 1 and 2. That could happen. Columbus, their second pick is a 2.5% chance, and the highest it could go is number 2 in the draft. The Winnipeg pick, which is a 2% chance, it could go as high as number 3. The Islanders, their 1.5% chance they could draft number 4, and teams 15 and 16 on the board are Vancouver, who has a 0.5% chance of a winning draw. And for Buffalo, there's a 0.5% chance. But again, this is a draft pick that's top 10 protected. So in the event that this is a winning draft pick, so if they win the lottery, that means that their pick would move up to 6th as the standings currently dictate. And that pick then would go back to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And of course, this is the Jack Eichel trade. If you're Buffalo, would you rather see them actually win the lottery and end up with that number 6 pick? And then there's no protection on the 2023 pick. So much like the Columbus deal, in the event that Vegas wins that draft lottery and they move up to 6th, Buffalo would then get the 2023 pick and there's no protection on it. So I don't know. Would you rather roll the dice on next year's draft pick being a pretty good one, or what do you want to do? So we'll see. The final draft rankings from the NHL Central Scouting will be on May 5th. I haven't been doing prospect reports at this point because there's still playoffs going on in the CHL, and not only that, but there's a lot of daily stuff going on. Normally at this time of year, I'm absolutely doing videos on draft picks and on prospects. However, everything's pushed back this year, so I've pushed those back. And once we've got the lottery done and we know who's drafting where, then I'll start getting into this year's draft class, which is, I think, a pretty good one. I've seen people saying it's kind of thin. You've got a few really good ones at the top. There's always that kind of talk every year. I think it's going to be a pretty good draft. The interesting part's going to be for a team that's drafting in the teens, the 20s, are they going to draft Russian players with the uncertainty around said players? Or are they going to say, no, I'd rather go for a North American or a player from another European country? And do we see Russian players end up dropping in the draft and end up being real steals later on, right? So, again, there's some uncertainty there with that, but it's going to be an interesting draft class. The Combine, Scouting Combine, pretty sure we didn't have this the last 2 years. It's going to be from May 29th through June 4th, and that's in Buffalo. So that's always interesting too, because that combine will give you a good idea of which guys might be in better shape than expected. Sometimes there's some eye openers in both directions when it comes to which players are ready. July 7th and 8th, we then have the draft in Montreal. So The draft lottery is supposed to be held remotely. Honestly, over the last couple of years, I think there's a lot of corporations that have figured out, you know what, if we can have meetings remotely, we're saving a lot of money on travel expenses. So I think that's definitely part of it. Now, just from an opinion perspective, Arizona getting that number 1 or number 2 pick is important. The Arizona Coyotes tore everything down, and now they need to show at least something for that, right? So next year they need to have a premier guy. A Shane Wright would be huge for them. Slavkovsky is though currently the number 3 pick, and honestly, he can end up being quite the star player himself. There's some debate about whether or not he could move up as high as 2, or it's at points this year I've heard comparisons with Shane Wright and people saying Slavkovsky may be better, but we'll see. So Montreal is listed as number 2 in the odds department. It would be great for Montreal to get that number 1 pick. I think they could use that. Their play has been better under Marty St. Louis. But yeah, they need that up-and-coming young superstar. As much as I like Caulfield and I love Suzuki, that star forward down the middle would be great for them. Philadelphia, 11.5% odds. Philadelphia fans have been through so much this year. And so a draft lottery win would be at least a positive step in the right direction. I think Philly fans should at least be grateful that when they made their trades and tried to make things work for this year, they didn't dangle their first round pick in 2022 as part of what they were doing. Seattle has a 9.5% chance of winning the draft lottery, and I think for Seattle that would be huge again. But I do think the top 5 in this draft are going to be pretty good. Of course, if Chicago did win the lottery, there would be some complaining, I would expect. However, with Taves getting older, Kane getting older, it could definitely use a star player. Again, they've got some good ones, but the difference really is there are some teams that have, some good young players, but do they really have that franchise level guy like a Kane? And I don't know that they do. Kirby Dach's taken a step back this year. No idea where things are going to go next year. Of course, if New Jersey wins the draft lottery, there'll be plenty of complaining and fist shaking because they already have Heischer and Hughes from draft lottery wins, so why not win another? Ottawa, it would be good for them if they won it, certainly. I know they have a lot of good young players too, but if they got it, of course, Buffalo, they win it last year, they got Owen Power, they win this year, they get Shane Wright. Hey, you're going to have a pretty good team. Interesting too, the Buffalo Sabres, there was an article I was looking at today that's basically along the lines of a lot of the players that are currently on the Buffalo Sabres roster, they're expecting them to be back next year. A lot of what you see right now in Buffalo is how their roster will look in the fall. That's the plan. And so adding a premier talent that could perhaps play next year would just be icing on the cake. Detroit, if they won it this year, it would actually be kind of odd because I don't think they're perceived as being a team that desperately needs that number 1 pick. But it would make Wings fans feel pretty good if they won that draft lottery, and I would imagine Yzerman would be pretty happy as well. San Jose, they could definitely use that infusion of talent. Eklund's going to be a good one. Don't get me wrong. But if they did win the draft lottery and got that number 1 pick, I think it would be fantastic. Anaheim doesn't really necessarily need that number 1 pick either. They're in a similar situation to Detroit where it feels like they're climbing their way out of this rebuild. But yeah, if you win it, it's definitely going to help to accelerate said rebuild. Of course, if you're a Columbus fan, the best scenario might be that winning the draft lottery, going number 2, because they can't draft number 1, they're the number 12 pick. You'd have the number 2 pick, and then you could have the number 6 pick as well from Chicago, depending on where everybody ends up finishing. That could be something right there. Having 2 picks in the top 6 could really help speed along Columbus on the route towards becoming a pretty darn good team in the league again, and likely a playoff team. And then, of course, you get the questions with Columbus, with Ottawa, with Buffalo. Can you create and achieve sustained success through the rebuilds these teams are going through? And I don't think we've got the answer yet. But there you go. I'll see you guys on May 10th for the draft lottery. I don't know where that necessarily would be. The move is the uncertainty of the date of exactly when I would be moving my operations from this set to the new set in the new house. Uncertain at this point. However, that time is coming, and when it does, that's going to be something right there. But yeah, I'm kind of anxious to see who wins this one. It should be kind of fun. Looking at previous winners of the draft lottery and seeing Buffalo won last year, I mean, if they won it again this year, Owen Power looks like the real deal, and Rasmus Dahlin is becoming quite the young defenseman who seems to irritate every team he plays against. I'm not sure what it is with Dahlin's game, but he seems to irritate the other teams quite quickly in the games, too. I've noticed this lately. But anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who do you think needs the number one pick the most? And who do you think of the teams that have the shot at that number one pick need it the least? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.